For you, Dad. And ILM, Industrial Light and Magic, handled the special effects, which in 1985 is not a small thing to say out loud. Now, ILM at that point had already done Star Wars, Raiders, E.T., Close Encounters. They were essentially the only shop in town if you wanted something to actually look real, and for Cocoon, they developed new compositing techniques specifically to make the aliens' bioluminescent glow feel organic rather than painted on, which is why, even 40 years later, the light effects don't look cheap or dated, they look alive.
This is the Marxists at the Movies podcast.
Marxists at the movies, bright and raw, breaking through the reels to rewrite the law. Workers of the world in every frame, changing the credits, rewriting the name.
Welcome to Marxists at the Movies, where, unfortunately, breaking into the neighbor's pool did not grant us eternal life, but instead, litigation. I'm Edward Michael Francis. And I'm also Edward Michael Francis. And to answer all your questions, yes, we are the same person. Yes, that's the joke. And yes, the less said about that night at the pool, the better. And what's worse? What's worse? The aliens that were renting our local nearby mansion? Not so friendly. There were laser blasters involved. Apparently not every extraterrestrial takes so kindly when you vandalize their rented estate. Noted. Anyway, let's talk about our thing. Marxists at the Movies is leftist nostalgia for the people. What the hell does that mean? It means we dissect the foundational properties we grew up on. Movies, TV, music, even the occasional video game and book, and filter them through a feminist or queer or other social justice lens. Think of it like the Bechdel cast, but even gayer and with more Stalin. Indeed. We never been an intentional famine that we didn't like, am I right? Sure. In the same way that Tiananmen Square was a massacre. And if you haven't guessed the movie already, today we're discussing our article Cocoon from 1985. Literal Alien-ation, a film that on its surface seems to be about lovable old folks relearning to bang, but underneath has volumes to say about how our capitalist society treats our most cherished friends and relatives. And don't forget, the movie was filmed on location in Florida! Woo! Right. You know, I'm all for pretty scenery, and this movie has plenty of it. But it's moments like this when I like to remember legendary comedian Brett Butler when she said, "I'm going to write a book about the South called When Beautiful Places Happen to Bad People." I'm maintaining that energy for Florida. Okay? Oof, Florida shots fired. If by Florida shots you mean early and often, then yes. If you were listening from the Cinemarch Media Information Club on Patreon, first of all, thank you. Special love to all our contributors. Mike, Edie, Ariana, Fiona, Leslie, and Sixie. You make this possible. You get to hear every single episode 1 month in advance, and in addition, we also feature ongoing bonus series exclusive to the Information Club only. We'll feature the full plug with the website link and everything later on. And as always, our executive producer, Myron the Revolutionary Cat, is supervising from the bed with the focused intensity of someone who has already achieved full communal living and sees no reason to explain it to the rest of us. They eat, they sleep, they are held, they ask nothing of capital, they are the post-scarcity future. Honestly, the most radical entity at Cinemarch Media, and it's not even close. Myron, we are not worthy. All right, everyone. Shuffleboard's at 2, dinner's at 3, and the sting is now. A word about spoilers, folks. Spoiler warnings are like finding the fountain of youth in a swimming pool. Eventually, the aliens come back for it, and all you're left with is red eyes and regret. and dead old folks. We will be discussing the full plot of Cocoon in this episode, so if you need to pause and go find a copy, and genuinely, good luck with that. Right. We mean it sincerely. We are not being glib. This film is gone. Gone. Squat. Zilch. Zero. Bupkis. The only reason we were able to watch it for this review is that we own a DVD copy, and we're lucky to have it. Physical media on eBay are going for hundreds of dollars. As of this recording, it is not on any major streaming platform. We'll get into why later, but just know that if the algorithm offers you something called Cocoon, check the year. It might be a 2022 art house film with absolutely nothing to do with glowing senior citizens. Or the 1988 sequel, which we will absolutely get into and which we will not be kind about. Poor Tawny Welch. Oh, they did Kitty so dirty in the sequel. She's in like 3 scenes. So yeah, find the film however the universe provides and meet us back here. Now, Cocoon has been one of our favorite movies since we were a child, which we were not supposed to like it. Well, it was for adults. A movie about old people, aging, and death. Hard sell for a kid on a Saturday afternoon. And yet, we watched it over and over because something in it called to us. Something deep and buried, long before we had language for autism, queerness, or being non-binary. We already knew what it meant to be unwanted by the system. We knew what it felt like to be treated like an inconvenience. Yeah. A burden. Something outside the story everyone else was telling. And in Cocoon, the people who were supposed to be useless, too old, too slow, suddenly came alive. They danced, they laughed, they loved. They mattered. We didn't fully understand the plot, but we felt the liberation. Exactly. We saw people who had been socially discarded and emotionally silenced become the center of a new world. That hit us hard. It still does. And it turns out there is a whole academic field built around exactly that feeling. Do tell. Yeah, it's called critical gerontology, and its central argument is this. The dependency and helplessness we associate with old age is manufactured. Sociologist Peter Townsend named the mechanism in a landmark 1981 paper. He called it structural dependency, the product of imposed retirement, the legitimation of low income, the denial of rights to self-determination, and the construction of care services that assume the elderly are passive recipients rather than active human beings. In other words, capitalism builds the cage and then calls it a gift. Simone de Beauvoir had already been saying this for almost a decade. In The Coming of Age, published in 1970, she argued that modern capitalist societies treat the old as walking corpses. The moment someone enters retirement, they are viewed as unproductive waste. And in one of her most devastating lines, she wrote simply, quote, "Society cares about the individual only insofar as he is profitable." Which raises the question every retiree under capitalism is eventually forced to sit with. If you are a worker who is no longer working, what value does your life have now? Beauvoir called this the comprehensive othering of the aged, a form of collective bad faith where society treats old age as a shameful secret it would rather not mention out loud. Cocoon was made 15 years after Beauvoir published that book and 4 years after Townsend named the mechanism. And whether it knew it or not, it is a fantasy response to both of them. A film that argues loudly and joyfully that everything capitalism systematically removes from the elderly can be restored. Agency, passion, purpose, the right to take up space. We're writing this and saying this approximately 3 weeks after our father died. We want to pause a moment to remember him. Michael Henry Francis, born October 1942 in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, passed away April 2026. He retired in 2002, and roughly 6 months later, he had his first heart attack. We don't think that was a coincidence. Nope. We think the system he had organized his entire identity around simply stopped needing him, and his body got the memo before his mind did. He spent the next 25 years in physical deterioration. 2 more heart attacks, a quadruple bypass, diabetes, kidney disease. He filled his days with YouTube, television, and the daily ritual of clearing several hundred spam emails from his inbox. He loved NASCAR, and he loved camping. But his legacy was complicated. He had his own demons, and unfortunately, they were often projected onto his children. He and our mother traveled the world, and that is a genuine and impressive sentence, the kind most people never get to say. But at home, he looked like a man who had lost his oars somewhere along the river of time and was just letting the current take him. We've been writing about him, about all of it, in our upcoming memoir, 7 Rooms, One Family Inside a Cult, which is about the high control systems we grew up inside and the patterns we finally learned to name. His retirement and what it did to him fits the pattern more than we would like. Cocoon has always moved us. Watching it now, 3 weeks after standing in that ICU, we understand it differently than we ever have before. Up next, the film itself and the world it drops us into. Okie dokie, comrades. For those of you whose walkers got stuck in a ditch since 1985, here's the plot of Cocoon. Cocoon follows a group of elderly residents at a Florida retirement community, and we want to name that retirement home for what it actually is. Socialist Erving Goffman's term fits perfectly here. A total institution. Now, when we hear total institution, we usually think of prisons, military barracks, psychiatric asylums, places of extreme confinement. But Goffman defines it as any place where a large number of similarly situated people, cut off from the wider society for an appreciable period of time, lead an enclosed, formally administered round of life, scheduled, surveilled, and stripped of autonomy. Shady Pines over here fits that definition, whether the brochure admits it or not. Our 3 central elders, Ben, played by Wilford Brimley, Joe, played by Hume Cronin, and Art, played by Don Ameche, decide one day to trespass next door to a vacant property with a swimming pool. And we want to linger on that word, trespass. They are technically criminals simply for wanting to feel alive. The institution has so thoroughly scheduled and pacified them that an unsanctioned swim is an act of law-breaking. The house has been quietly rented by a group of aliens, Antarians, led by their commander, Walter, played with magnificent warmth by Brian Dennehy. They're using the pool to store cocoons containing members of their species rescued from a failed mission. And it's not even a little bit unfunny that even beings from a post-capitalist civilization cannot operate on Earth without first performing capitalism. They need a real estate agent. They need a lease. They need to hand over cash to run a rescue mission. You can travel light years across the galaxy, but they'll still charge you if you don't sweep the floors. When the elders begin swimming in the pool, they are unknowingly absorbing the life energy from the cocoons. Their bodies grow younger, their spirits reignite, they rediscover joy, connection, and purpose. All things capitalism had quietly taken from them. And we want to pause and give a special shout out to Wilford Brimley. Right, because after the 3 leads absorb the pool energy and begin diving like pro athletes, Brimley is required to flub a dive off the board where he lands with it between his legs. We know he probably wasn't hurt, but yikes if it doesn't look convincing. Oh, that's pure Hollywood magic for you right there. Come for the eternal life. Stay for Wilford's balls. Also entangled in all of this is Jack Bonner, a local boat captain played by Steve Guttenberg, who gets hired by the Antarians to help recover the cocoons and slowly learns the truth about who he's actually working for. Jack is the film's most class-legible character. He owns his boat, the Manta 3, which means he technically owns his means of production, but he is entirely beholden to whoever charters it. One bad month, one broken engine, and he's done. Totally. He's petit bourgeois in the truest sense. Just independent enough to feel free, just precarious enough to never actually be. Hey, that rhymes. Jack also begins a flirtation with Kitty, one of the Antarians in human form, played by Tawny Welch, who is, to put it gently, entirely unbothered by his awkward charm. Eventually, the aliens make an offer to the elders. Leave Earth and join them in a life free from aging, illness, and death. And that offer is the film's central ideological tension, because what the elders are being invited to do is emigration from a broken system rather than transformation of it. Yeah, the system that discarded them remains perfectly intact, ready to grind up the next generation. But we don't want to get ahead of ourselves. Indeed. Up next, the genuinely chaotic story of how this film got made.
Breaking news, Cinemarch is selling out.
That's right, folks, and you've been begging us for merch, so here it is.
The Cinemarch Media Shop is officially open. Propaganda-style designs, revolutionary messaging, Myron the cat being adorable and menacing.
Plus that unpaid labor tee for all you drum corps kids who know the deal.
And don't forget Cult Froggy, she's there too.
You can check it out at cinemarchmedia.com. Support the work, look good doing it.
Wear it loud, piss off a boomer.
Visit cinemarchmedia.com today. Now let's talk industry turkey for a minute, because the production history of Cocoon is its own little parable about Hollywood panic and corporate incompetence.
Which, for a film about a system that discards people when they're no longer useful, is extremely on brand.
Cocoon was directed by Ron Howard, just a few years out from Night Shift, and
he was still shaking off those Opie overalls in the minds of the public.
Right, in everyone's mind, including Hollywood, he was still the hapless high schooler trying to score a date at the Milwaukee Drive-In.
The script was written by Tom Benedek, based loosely on an unpublished novel by David Saperstein that had been floating around Fox since 1980, stymied by continual changes in studio administration.
Once again, the Hollywood shuffle torpedoes more dreams and careers.
And just to be clear, the based on credit is doing heavy lifting. The adaptation scrubs the novel's darker science fiction down to something palatable, a gentle alien tale dressed in family-friendly fantasy and Reagan-era sentimentality.
And the road to Howard was genuinely messy. Robert Zemeckis was originally hired as director and spent a full year in development on it. Then Fox executives got an early look at Romancing the Stone before its release in 1984, and were so convinced it was going to be a historic disaster, they fired Zemeckis from Cocoon on the spot.
Romancing the Stone was, just a little bit successful.
You think? And Zemeckis, to his eternal credit, later told the Los Angeles Times, quote, "After they saw the movie, they wanted to hire me back on Cocoon. I just kind of politely declined after that."
Wow. Shout out to Daddy Z for the big D energy. Why, that move is almost as strong as...
Don't say it.
Wilford Brimley's balls.
Could we not get into our weird obsession with the Quaker Oats guy, please?
Oh, honey, we'll talk more about it later.
Do you see the black nothing looming in the distance? What do you suppose that is?
A thinly veiled never-ending story reference?
No, even worse. That's the dark specter of demonetization. Do not cross it.
Okay. Thanks for that. Moving on.
So Fox is sitting there with an empty director's chair, and they hand the film to Ron Howard.
And Howard had reservations. He was uneasy about the film's similarities to E.T. and Close Encounters, but he committed to a very specific vision. And when Fox pushed him to lean into the sci-fi spectacle, he flat out refused. He kept the camera and the emotional weight of the story squarely on the elderly cast.
Which turned out to be the right call, because that cast was extraordinary. Producer Richard D. Zanuck described it as having, quote, maybe 400 years of experience combined. Don Ameche was 77, Hume Cronin was 74, and Jessica Tandy was 76.
Directing them all was Ron Howard, age 31.
And then there is the great anomaly of the cast, Wilford Brimley playing Ben. You look at that legendary lineup of seasoned elderly actors, and then you look at Brimley, and the numbers simply do not add up.
He was 49 during filming.
49.
49. The makeup department had to bleach his hair, dye his mustache gray, and draw fake liver spots on his face every single morning just so he wouldn't look out of place standing next to Hume Cronin.
Howard later described Brimley as tough,
quote, I had to deal with him very differently than I dealt with anybody else, and it was sometimes unpleasant. But he also acknowledged that Brimley, quote, elevated the tone and brought a naturalism and an honesty to Cocoon that was exactly what the film needed. This has since spawned the legendary internet phenomenon known as the Brimley Cocoon line.
Oh, my Satan below. Yes. This.
It's the exact age Brimley was when the film premiered, measured in days. People use it to track when modern actors like Tom Cruise or Brad Pitt cross that same threshold while still headlining massive action franchises.
Cruise is over here jumping off motorcycles through the moving blades of helicopters onto moving trains. Meanwhile, at the exact same age, Brimley was shuffling around a Florida retirement home bragging that he got a boner.
I wish we could play a clip, but we'll just have to describe it.
Shortly after the three men had been reinvigorated by the pool, Ben bragged to the other two that he got an erection. His exact words were, blue steel, cat couldn't scratch it. I mean, come on.
See, this is why we love Wilford Brimley. It's reclamation of sexual agency. A little crass, but kind of sweet, too.
And speaking of the film looking that good, can we just say St. Petersburg, Florida did not get nearly enough credit for how much of this film it carries.
Right, this wasn't a 2-day shoot for some establishing shots. A significant portion of the production was on location there. The retirement community, the pool, the marina, the streets. The city is practically a co-star.
And ILM, Industrial Light and Magic, handled the special effects, which in 1985 is not a small thing to say out loud.
Now, ILM at that point had already done Star Wars, Raiders, E.T., Close Encounters. They were essentially the only shop in town if you wanted something to actually look real, and for Cocoon, they developed new compositing techniques specifically to make the aliens' bioluminescent glow feel organic rather than painted on.
Which is why, even 40 years later, the light effects don't look cheap or dated, they look alive.
Hello? ILM was inventing and breaking the rulebook at the same time, and this project was no exception. The effects definitely hold up.
Now, let's talk about what this film actually did at the box office, because they really sealed it up. See what I did there?
Unfortunately, yes. Cocoon opened June 21st, 1985 on a budget of $17.5 million and grossed $85.3 million worldwide, making it the 6th highest grossing film of that entire year.
For context, Back to the Future took in $210 million domestically that same summer. Cocoon was not that, but it didn't need to be.
Indeed. It earned its money the old-fashioned way, word of mouth. People dragging their parents and grandparents to the multiplex and VHS rentals that kept it circulating long after the theatrical run ended.
And the critics largely showed up for it. Rotten Tomatoes currently sits it at 82% fresh, and Roger Ebert gave it 3 out of 4 stars, calling it one of the sweetest, gentlest science fiction movies I've seen. A hymn to the notion that aliens might come from outer space and yet still be almost as corny and impulsive as we are.
Both Siskel and Ebert gave it 2 thumbs up, specifically praising its fresh and generous view of older people. The New York Times' Janet Maslin noted that Howard, quote, brings a real sweetness to his subject, and praised the film's bright, expansive visual style.
And we would be remiss if we did not mention the awards attention the film received.
Hollywood veteran Don Ameche secured a win for the 1985 Best Supporting Actor Oscar.
His speech is the stuff of legends, and we'll fully get into that later on.
Trust us, it's worth the wait.
But here's the thing. Not everyone was fully on board. TV Guide called it a gentle and effective heart-tugger, but expressed unease about Howard's vision of old age, one in which the young cannot accept the notion of getting old.
Which is, read critically, exactly the point. The discomfort some critics felt watching elderly people refuse to disappear could not be a more painfully clear illustration of the aged othering we've been talking about.
The film was produced by Lily and Richard Zanuck, a Hollywood power couple with a hand in everything from Jaws to Driving Miss Daisy, and it shows. Cocoon was polished, studio safe, and steeped in the kind of clean production values that defined mid-80s prestige sci-fi. It also features a full orchestral score from James Horner, performed by the Hollywood Studio Symphony, who broke into the mainstream composing Star Trek II: The Wrath of Khan on a notoriously shoestring budget, and brought that same lush, sweeping instinct to Cocoon. And that score, as it happens, is a significant reason why you cannot legally stream this film today. Precisely. The music rights are not cleared for new media or transnational sales, likely tied to complications following Horner's death in a plane crash in 2015. A film about escaping death's reach is, appropriately, tangled in its composer's estate. We want to sit with that for just a moment because it is extraordinarily on the nose. And it's such a shame, too, because the score is genuinely one of the great unsung achievements of Horner's early career. So much! This is a score that, by Horner's own account, launched him into the Hollywood stratosphere. Steven Spielberg loved the film and loved the music, and Horner said afterward, "My career really took off with Cocoon." And you can hear why. It's a full orchestra, and you hear every penny of it. The writing moves from delicate solo piano to sweeping, almost spiritual grandeur, sometimes within the same scene. And then there's the jazz. Hell yeah. People really sleep on that element of the film. The big band arrangements were orchestrated by none other than Billy May. Wow. Jazz pedigree much? Right? A man who arranged for Frank Sinatra, Ella Fitzgerald, and played trumpet for Glenn Miller, they brought in a genuine titan of the American songbook for this cute little geriatric science fiction tale. Which is, when you think about it, perfect casting for a score. Speaking of the score again, the whole thing builds to a 12-minute finale called The Ascension that is just... it's overwhelming. Cymbal crash after cymbal crash, theme after theme, layering on top of each other until you are simply undone. And it is sitting in a vault, legally inaccessible, which is, again, extraordinarily on the nose. Then, just when you think the film might tip too far into the sentimental, Michael Cimbello's searing club track Gravity kicks in and injects pure heat into what becomes the film's most unforgettable moment. Okay, now, you know what we have to talk about, right? Of course. How could I forget? So, Gravity has a music video, and it is something. There's a monkey in everything, among other furry creatures. We're talking about Michael Cimbello, right? I mean, his beard in this video. Oh, Satan below, the beard. We'll talk more about that a bit later. Be sure to stay tuned. We're gonna have some fun. Anyway, despite its safe trappings, despite the Reagan-era sheen and the studio-approved polish, Cocoon touches a nerve, because it accidentally stumbles into one of the most potent metaphors in American cinema. What happens to people when they stop producing? Up next, we explore the ideological implications of jacked up senior citizens and the aliens that made them. So here's what's actually happening when those three old men climb into that pool. Because on the surface, it looks like a Fountain of Youth story, and it is, but only on the surface. Well, under capitalism, once your labor is no longer extractable, once you've been retired, scheduled, and filed away, you become, in Marxist terms, socially dead. And that is exactly where we find Ben, Joe, and Art at the beginning of this film. They're not sick or frail or helpless. There's a difference, and Cocoon understands that difference better than almost any film of its era. The moment they step into that alien-infused pool, everything changes. The change is ideological as much as it is physical. The pool functions as a revolutionary commons, communal and healing, unowned by any corporation. No one charges admission, no one exploits it for profit. It simply exists. And within it, the elders rediscover agency, desire, power, connection. Everything that structured dependency systematically removed. Nowhere is that more vividly embodied than in Don Ameche's breakdancing scene. And we need to talk about this scene because it is one of the most purely joyful moments in 1980 cinema.
Art and Audra, played by Gwen Verdon, go out to a modern dance club. They begin with a tango, refined, elegant, exactly what society deems age-appropriate for people in their late 70s. And the crowd around them is politely indifferent at best. And then the DJ switches the record, Michael Cimbello's gravity kicks in, and Art just loses his mind in the best possible way. He drops to the floor, he pops and locks, he goes into full-body athletic breakdancing.
That Dutch angle shot Howard uses along the floor as Art executes a perfect windmill.
Oh, it's dripping with music video energy, and in the logic of the plot, Art owns the room because he refuses invisibility. This is a public, undeniable, full-bodied refusal of decline. Art is physically reclaiming his body from capital's discard pile and throwing it back in society's face.
That performance, like the pool itself, restores dignity, and that is revolutionary. Which brings us to the architects of that revolutionary commons, the Antarians themselves.
Because the aliens in this film are not of the War of the Worlds variety.
The War of the Worlds? Honey, these aliens have all the menace of Stitch from Lilo and Stitch. It's almost a point of comedy how boring they are.
Remember the disastrous TGIF sitcom Going Places?
Ah, yes, Going Places. The TV show where the only thing Bickley Warren seemed to spend money on was that soaring theme song.
Well, why can I suddenly picture Walter, Kitty, and company starring in it?
Kitty keeps going on dates and removing her skin.
Going places, removing faces.
The yuppies, the aliens, quietly rent a house, submerge their cocoons, and begin a mission of restoration.
When the humans stumble into the pool, they don't retaliate. They simply ask, please, don't touch the cocoons.
Yes, their entire ethic is care without control. They model a society without labor exploitation, without punishment or property as a weapon. Their goal is rescue. It's the clearest depiction of post-capitalist ethics in the film.
And Brian Dennehy's performance is absolutely essential to making that work.
Queen, Walter could have come off as hokey, otherworldly to the point of parody, or emotionally blank.
Oh, I know. But Dennehy plays him with this stoic, alien warmth, a serenity, a depth. He seems to exist just slightly outside of time.
It's a performance in the same spirit as Jeff Bridges in Starman. That delicate balancing act of portraying an alien with tenderness and just enough emotional distance to remind you, this being is not human.
Yes. Their two performances parallel each other a lot. But where Bridges plays wonder,
Dennehy plays grace.
Right. And that grace is severely tested. Because when the careless humans rush the pool en masse, fighting over the life force like it's alligator meat at a Florida delicatessen, they accidentally damage one of the cocoons, and an alien dies.
A death caused by greed, by the ingrained human belief that absolutely everything, even a miraculous, glowing, communal life force, is just another resource to be consumed and fought over.
Walter pulls the ruined cocoon from the water, and he grieves. He looks at the humans and says, I've never known the pain.
That line is both an emotional and ideological turning point. Walter has never known grief because his society eliminated the conditions that produce it. No exploitation, no scarcity, and no disposability. But through contact with Earth, with capitalist logic, he experiences loss as trauma for the first time.
This is what we call the moment of infection. The virus of capitalist indifference reaches a species that had evolved past it millennia ago, and it wounds them.
And yet, Walter continues. He does not become cruel. He finishes the mission, and he still invites the elders to come with them even after they killed one of his own.
That is care at its most radical. Unearned, unwavering, and extended to people who absolutely do not deserve it. Because connection matters more than punishment.
Up next, the people. The individual stories that carry the film's deepest weight after this message. Well, folks, we got ourselves a new friend joining the show.
That's right. Cult Froggy's here, and she's been hopping through the swamp, peeling back the layers and opening eyes.
From the preacher's pulpit to the boardroom floor.
She's talking high control groups, thought reform, the systems that keep folks trapped.
Cults are everywhere.
And yes, folks, the marching revolution is still here.
But now it's bigger and better.
Cult Froggy ain't sitting in the shade. Check her out at cinemarchmedia.com today.
Now, let's talk about the people. Because the Marxist framework is the skeleton of this film, but the characters are its beating heart.
Let's start with Jack and Kitty. Because Jack Bonner is, as we established, our petite bourgeois gig worker. Dorky, charming, and perpetually hustling, and Kitty is an ancient ethereal alien who is completely immune to every dad joke in his arsenal.
He is so smitten, and she is so unbothered. It's genuinely funny, but the pool scene between them is where everything shifts.
Yeah, instead of sex, Kitty offers a sharing experience. Pure light and energy. Intimacy without physical transaction. Vulnerability without power games. And Jack, to his credit, doesn't push. He just opens up and receives it.
In a Marxist reading, this moment is a complete rejection of sex as transaction. It asks, what if intimacy was about witnessing? What if love didn't need to be earned or negotiated like a contract?
And in the end, Jack's most profound moment of connection is achieved simply by learning to exist in the same space as another person without trying to own them.
Suffice to say, I'm sure Jack found the situation very enlightening. Am I right? Edward? Are you there?
Oh, I'm still here. I'm just letting that one sit on you for a minute.
I'm a big girl. I can take it.
Of course. Now, Bernie and Rose, and we need to take our time here because this is the most devastating thread in the entire film.
Bernie and Rose don't rush to the pool. Bernie is skeptical. He thinks it's unnatural. Meanwhile, Rose is sick, her body failing, her memory slipping. She's already being erased by the ordinary cruelties of a system that discards the sick alongside the old.
By the time Bernie finally relents, finally decides to carry his dying wife to the water, it's too late. The cocoons are gone. The commons has been destroyed. The pool is just cold water, and Rose dies in his arms.
And then when the aliens offer everyone a ticket to eternity, a world where nobody gets sick, nobody ages, and nobody dies, Bernie refuses.
Yeah, not out of bitterness, not out of fear, but because eternity without Rose isn't eternity. It's just a very long time to be without her.
Bernie becomes the film's conscientious objector to utopia. He chooses memory. He chooses ending. He understands that a new world, even a perfect, painless world without his beloved, is no world at all.
And in a Marxist reading, Bernie is the reminder that liberation can arrive too late, that not everyone gets saved, and that matters more than who does.
And there is a moment, a quiet, devastating moment, where Walter finds Bernie holding Rose in the pool, broken. And Walter looks at him and says simply, "I'm sorry. I wish I could help."
And you can see it on his face. He is back in that water, holding a ruined cocoon.
Damn you, Dennehy. You're so good.
Right? We see everything. Walter knows this grief now. He has felt it, and it is that recognition, one being's loss reflected in another's, that plants the seed of the offer.
Exactly. Walter invites the elders to Antaria because he understands, now, what it costs to lose someone to a circumstance that didn't have to take them.
Grief as a bridge between species. If that's not radical, I don't know what is.
Now let's talk about Ben's grandson David, played by Barrett Oliver. Because David doesn't have a full arc, he doesn't change the world, he doesn't fly away with the others. His role is symbolic. He is the future the elders won't live to see. When Ben chooses to leave, David jumps onto the boat as it pulls away, desperate to follow the only people who have ever shown him wonder and truth. And Ben stops him. You can't go. You gotta stay with your mom. So David jumps into the ocean instead. As the boat lifts into the air, he treads water, watching his grandfather disappear into the sky, shouting up, "It's okay! I'm not scared! Get going!" David doesn't inherit the revolution. He inherits the memory of it. In Marxist terms, he is the next generation under capitalism, left behind to live in the wreckage and perhaps carry forward the stories that one day spark another rupture. And that matters because the revolutionary virus cannot be circumvented once it takes hold. Now, the women. The women. Because while Cocoon keeps its spotlight largely on the men, the women who walk beside them are the conscience of this entire narrative. And we want to be very clear about that. Mary, played by Maureen Stapleton, is Ben's wife and the film's emotional core. As Ben becomes energized by the pool, Mary's response is not fear or skepticism, it's watchful love. "Sure, let's go meet the aliens," she says. She weighs it and she sees the change in him, and when she chooses to leave Earth with him, it's not in pursuit of youth or eternity, it's out of shared history, wherever that history leads. Alma, played by Jessica Tandy, has the hardest road. Joe's transformation turns him reckless. He flirts, he strays, he lets the euphoria of his revived body completely override the integrity of their bond, and Alma does not quietly absorb it. Nope. She confronts him. Her line, "I'm happy you're going to live, Joe, but I need to live too," lands like a punch to the gut. She refuses to be the collateral damage in his revival. She demands to matter on her own terms, and her arc is the most radical of all the women in this film. Then there's Audra, played by Gwen Verdon, Art's partner, the film's unexpected firecracker. We see them in what appears to be an intimate pre-coital moment. Whispered reassurances, hands touching, all nervous, romantic energy. And then the doors behind them open to reveal a church, a priest, the whole traditional setup. These two commitment phobes who have spent their entire relationship dodging marriage are eloping right before they leave the planet forever. The world spent decades convincing them they were too old, too set in their ways, too late for new beginnings. But faced with genuine infinity, they chose the most earthbound, conventional, beautifully human thing possible. They get married. And that's Audra's revolution, proving it's never too late to surprise yourself. And finally, Rose. Her to Wear's Rose carries the film's most devastating truth. That liberation has a timeline, and love doesn't wait for revolution. She begins the story already unwell. She never makes it to the pool and dies in her beloved Bernie's arms. Her absence becomes Bernie's entire moral framework. She is capitalism's final casualty and Bernie's eternal anchor. The one who reminds us that not everyone gets saved. Together, these four women carry the film's deepest truths: that love outlives youth, that intimacy doesn't fade with age, and that grief is the price of connection. They are the conscience of Cocoon. Up next, the ending, the Oscar, and the question the film leaves us with. So, what happens when the discarded class refuses to disappear? Because the ending of Cocoon is where everything the film has been building toward finally lands. In the final act, the elders are offered a choice: return to a world of decline or leave. And they leave. They walk away from capitalist collapse and into a post-labor, post-death, post-alienation existence. But we want to be precise about something, because the film thinks it's giving us a triumphant ending, and in many ways it is. Right. But what the elders are doing when they board that spaceship is not a revolution. It's an escape. The retirement home is still there, the structured dependency is still being manufactured, the cage is still being built and grifted to them as a gift. Now let's go back to Don Ameche for a second, because to understand why his Oscar win landed the way it did, you need to understand who Don Ameche was to Hollywood. Dominique Felix Ameche was a major star in the 1930s and 40s. He was so famous for playing Alexander Graham Bell in a 1939 biopic that for decades, telephones were colloquially called Ameches in Hollywood slang. And then the industry moved on, the roles dried up, and the decades passed. Yep. By the time Cocoon came along, Ameche had been functionally absent from major Hollywood productions for decades. He was 77 years old. He was, by every metric the industry uses to measure worth, done. But then Ron Howard handed him a role that asked him to breakdance on a nightclub floor in orthopedic shoes, and he delivered one of the most purely joyful performances of 1985. He was not the frontrunner for the Oscar, not even close. He was an aging veteran actor in what many dismissed as summer popcorn fare. The Academy does not typically reward that combination, and yet, on that night, Don Ameche walked to that podium and received 40 seconds of uninterrupted standing ovation. 40 seconds, which in Oscar terms is an eternity. And girl, he was ready for it. Poised. A spring in his step that a man 40 years his junior would have envied. And what he said from that podium was remarkable. We will link the full speech in our research notes in the description. Let's take a listen now.
And the winner is Don Ameche in Cocoon.
It would please me very much if everyone that made a creative contribution to Cocoon would stand here with me in spirit, because they deserve to be here. And to them I give my deep, deep thanks. To all you members of the Academy, this esteemed gentleman here says that you have given to me your recognition. You've given to me your love. You have given to me, and I hope I have earned, your respect. For all these, I am deeply grateful. Thank you.
This esteemed gentleman, he referred to himself in the third person with complete, unironic, magnificent dignity. And the room loses its mind because they understand what they're witnessing. An industry that had discarded this man was now watching him receive its highest honor for breakdancing, of all things. Well, the Academy did something accidentally radical that night. It honored the worker at the end of his shift, and it gave the spotlight to someone once written off. And he took it with grace and with funk in front of thunderous acclaim. In the real world, that moment is this film's thesis made flesh. Structured dependency reversed, social death refused. A man reclaiming his body, his craft, and his place in the story on the biggest stage Hollywood has. Up next, where we land on all of it. The rating, the personal reckoning, and the sequel we are legally obligated to discuss. Stay tuned. You know, folks, building a revolution takes a village. Right, and we've got a free 1-week Patreon offer just for you at the new Cinemarch Media Information Club. For $7 a month, you get full access to either Cult Froggy or Marxists at the Movies. Or for $12, you get both shows. Every single tier includes a free 1-week trial with no commitment and surprise cameos from Myron the Revolutionary Cat and Cult Froggy. 2 content streams plus 2 adorable mascots for the price of 1?
What a bargain!
Head over to patreon.com/Cinemarch Media and join the Cinemarch Media Information Club today. Comrades, we have had a wheelchair of fun revisiting this film.
I mean, how could we not? Don Ameche doing a handspring is the tonic we didn't even know we needed.
It really is. But we had a thought.
Uh-oh.
Uh-oh is right. What if they hadn't stopped there? What if the pool energy had kept going? What if Ron Howard had looked at his extraordinary cast of septuagenarians and said, you know what? Let's really see what these bodies can do.
For instance, all three couples inexplicably end up at a BDSM bar, and Bernie ends up strapped to a metal table in a full leather harness, which honestly tracks for Bernie.
Fellas, get me out of this thing!
Or maybe the men get their hands on off-brand HGH and the testosterone goes fully sideways. Suddenly it's a Fast and Furious sequel through the streets of St. Petersburg, Florida.
Vin Diesel. Paul Walker. Hume Cronin.
I mean, based on what I've heard about good old Vin, he'd probably ask Hume Cronin to arm wrestle, then out for drinks.
Or, wait, even worse, Don Ameche riding that pool energy all the way to the basketball court, full Michael Jordan arc, slam dunk, turns to the camera and says, "In your face, Junior."
Oh, wait a tick.
Oh, yeah, that happened in the sequel.
Yep, that happened.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, look at it this way. Cocoon could have been a real piece of shit. Like Cocoon the Return.
Ouch. Oof. Anyway, let's get back to the business of grieving with dignity, shall we?
We shall.
We've weighed the labor. We've analyzed the means of Florida retirement production, and it is time for the final tally.
But before we get there, we need to circle back once more, this time to Bernie.
Yeah, because Bernie stays, and Bernie is the one we keep coming back to.
Mm-hmm. Not because staying is nobler than leaving, but because Bernie's grief is specific. It has a name, a face, a woman he loved who didn't make it to the pool in time.
His refusal of eternity is entirely driven by the fact that he cannot be complete even in heaven without Rose. Her time came before his, and it simply wasn't in the cards for him. Life worked out differently for that one.
And we've been thinking about our father in that hospital bed. The flurry of doctors, the whirring machines, the moment we said, turn them off. It's time.
We've been thinking about what it would have meant if Walter had walked through that door instead. Carrying an offer with no strings attached, no more pain, no more decline, no more of the damage that accumulated between us over decades of a relationship that was never simple and never will be.
Would he have taken it?
We think he would have. Our father, more than anything, wanted to get back to the house, to his routines, to the ordinary texture of a life he understood. The Antarian offer isn't so different from that. It's the fantasy of continuation without any cost. And he was a man who loved continuation, who drove toward it even when the doctors said, stop.
But there's another, more pressing question on our minds, isn't there?
Yeah.
Would we have wanted him to take it?
This is the question that keeps us up,
because wanting him healed and free of pain and damage and the long weight of everything he carried is love. But it's also maybe the last boundary we ever get to set with him.
The hope that somewhere beyond the machines and the hospital and the checkered history, he finally sees us clearly. That whatever comes after strips away everything that made it hard, and what's left is just the two of us, without the wreckage between us.
We don't know if that's grief or hope or something we don't have a word for yet.
But what we know is this. The elders in Cocoon get the offer because they were discarded. because they were left at the margins and seen as worthless, and the film accidentally, beautifully, argues that those are exactly the people who deserve a door out. Our father was complicated. He was our first bully and our parent simultaneously, and we will spend a long time figuring out what to do with both of those things being true at once. But he was also old. He was also discarded. He was also a man lying in a hospital bed, his body failing, the machines breathing for him. He deserved it. He deserved the offer too. Art dances. Walter grieves. Bernie remembers. David accepts. And the rest, they leave. Our father left. And now we're standing on the beach, smiling at the sky. R.I.P., Dad. Your life gets 5 out of 5 hammers and sickles. Our mother likes to think he's up there sitting around a table, laughing with his parents and all his brothers and sisters that passed before him. We like to think she might be right. But it's time to get back to business. Yes. Speaking of hammers and sickles, it's time for the revolutionary rating. Cocoon is an unintentional communist masterpiece about what happens when the discarded class of capitalism discovers communal healing, anti-capitalist care, and post-labor liberation, and chooses each other over the system that erased them. Beauvoir wrote that there is only one solution to old age not becoming an absurd parody of a former life: to go on pursuing ends that give existence meaning. The elders of Cocoon do exactly that and then some. They don't just find meaning, they escape the institution that was manufacturing their meaninglessness. And the final rating is 4.5 out of 5 hammers and sickles. Not a perfect 5 because there's no actual revolution, just the memory of what one might feel like. And of course, Hollywood couldn't leave well enough alone. No, it could not. Cocoon: The Return arrived in 1988 and sent the elders back to Earth in a sequel so tepid it barely registers. The radicalism is gone, and the politics are muddled, to put it kindly. It's capitalism's favorite hat trick. Take liberation, drain it of meaning, and try to franchise it. The only thing worth the price of admission? Oh, Elaine Stritch! Elaine Stritch as Ruby, delivering a performance so electric, so biting, so unmistakably Stritch that it punches through the beige fog like a Broadway spotlight. A rare film appearance, and an unforgettable one. Everything else, send it back to space, lose the coordinates, and to quote our queen Elaine, f*** off. And now, for the highest honor our little collective can bestow, it's no career-capping Oscar, but it's something. It's time to name our Comrade of the Week. Now, normally, Comrade of the Week is a very serious affair, one that we take dutifully. But as a neurodivergent abuse survivor with PTSD, we tend to get a little restless when having to repeat ourselves. Restless? Honey, Robin Williams called. He wants his mania back. Quite. So we decided to go a slightly different angle today. This episode's Comrade of the Week did not act in this film, did not write this film, did not direct, produce, or even score this film. That's right, folks. Our Comrade of the Week is Michael Sembello's beard. Indubitably, Michael's facial hair in the Gravity music video, if it was any more hip, it would have to order out for greens. It was nearly edged out in a fierce battle royale with Ron Howard's mustache, but it emerged victorious. As it should. Look at it. We will link the video in the description, and we need you to really sit with what you are seeing here. That beard has survived longer than the rights to this film. That beard has more logic than most of the sequel. That beard said, why stop at looking like a 10 when the trimmer goes all the way down to 0? Michael Cimbello's beard, unsung hero of the Cocoon soundtrack, true comrade of the follicular revolution. We salute you, Michael Cimbello's beard, hairballs and all. We'll be right back, comrades. All right, all you mall walkers, wheelchair warriors, and bedpan beauties, what did we learn today? We learned that even post-capitalist aliens who have transcended death, scarcity, and the concept of suffering still have to find a realtor.
What if they just offered her immortality as part of the lease? Like, I, Walter D. Alien Pants, do hereby agree to lift up said realty professional, hereafter referred to as Dorcas, in a white halo of heavenly light during an improbably dense fog at the end of 30 days, provided the proper maintenance on the broken soffit at the south end of the property is fixed in due course.
But we also learn that if you don't like your date's face, don't worry, she's about to remove it.
Well, you know what they say. Don't like your date's face.
Just wait a few minutes. We learned that the only thing more legally inaccessible than a post-capitalist utopia is this film on any major streaming platform.
And finally, we learned that Wilford Brimley's balls bounce back faster than you can say diabetes.
I hope he was wearing a cup when he hit that diving board crotch first.
But on the serious side, Cocoon argues that the people capitalism has used up, written off, and filed away are exactly the people who deserve a better lease on their end of life. And it argues that with more accidental grace and genuine feeling than most films manage on purpose. Bernie stays, David watches the sky, and the rest of them leave on a boat that rises into the stars, and somehow, that feels like the most radical thing any of them could do. We hope you've enjoyed this Marxists at the Movies presentation of Cocoon, 1985, Literal Alien-ation. If you want to read the full article, including the deep dives into structured dependency, Goffman's total institution, and de Beauvoir's comprehensive othering of the aged, it's up on Patreon right now, along with the bonus content and other episodes that ruin your childhood favorites in the name of the proletariat. You can also find everything we do at cinemarchmedia.com, including merch, updates, and Myron's latest completely unreasonable demands.
And you can find Marxists at the Movies and Cult Froggy on Instagram, TikTok, Spotify, and everywhere else you get your leftist fuckery.
Thanks for listening, comrades. This is Marxists at the Movies.
Bye.
Scene opens, white lights dim down low.
Thank you for listening to the Marxists at the Movies podcast.
Cinema whispers
Don't
where
forget to like
truth
and
can
comment.
grow. From shadows deep and screens ignite, the proletariat comes alive tonight. Marxists at the movies, bright and raw, breaking through the reels to rewrite the law. Workers of the world in every frame, changing the credits, rewriting the name. Popcorn power and the working class dream. Each flickers with a revolutionary beam. The heroes rise from the factory Blockbusters topple in an epic.
Copyright 2026, Cinemarch Media.